Okay, well, it's a little afternoon, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. My name's Andrea Hine. I'm from the Career and Advising Center, and with me today is...
Hi, everyone. I'm Missy DeHaan. I'm one of the Career and Academic Advisors here over in the Career and Advising Center.
Yes, and we're happy you've joined us. Got our message that we've put together a series of four sessions throughout the remainder of spring, kind of related to advising. So right now is about the time to get ready for advising season. So thanks for joining us. We're mostly focusing on some policies, some process, some talking points and resources that you'll find valuable as we jump into these class registration focused advising appointments. And so with that, we also have Kendra Otto and Hallie Haugen with us too, as well, from Registration and Records. They're both degree analysts and from Registration and Records. So of course that's very, those are our policy and our go-to gurus on curriculum and all of that. So do you guys want to wave hello? All right. Yes. So they might jump in and they'll monitor the chat. And we also have Jessie Bauer with us from the Career and Advising Center, and she's going to help us out monitoring the chat and everything as well. So if you have questions, please feel free to pop those in there. We have a lot of different ranges of advising experience on the call right now, it looks like too. So if anybody wants to share some of their ideas or how they do things, happy to have you join in this as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I like to start off with just talking a little bit about NACADA, the National Academic Advising Association. As academic advisors, that's our professional organization. And in 2017, they really put a focus on defining what good advising looks like. And they've broken down 20 or so core competencies into 3 overarching areas: conceptual, informational, or relational. And so today what we're talking about really falls under that informational hub, because we want to talk a lot about NDSU specific institutional policies, process, resources we have on our campus that you'll use for your advising work. And throughout our little series here for spring, we hope to cover some topics that fall under the others. Specifically next week, one on building relationships with your students, which would fall under that relational area with those core competencies. So join us today and hopefully you'll gain some knowledge about some of the most pertinent policies and get some ideas of how you can, workflow your advising for this spring semester. So advising season is coming. What does your workflow look like? So this is just an example of some things that I do, that I've heard from other advisors that they do. We're hopeful that this will make some of your work easier. So we have entered that advising time to talk about class registration. So whether you have 5 advisees or 400, which I know some on the call definitely have both of those, and everywhere in between, advising takes place all year round, but at this time is when we're really shifting our focus to talk about classes. So throughout the semester, you're having conversations with students about career ideas, internship ideas, maybe challenges that they're facing in their classes or personally. But now is when a lot of them are coming in to talk about what to register for the upcoming semester. So registration begins for students based on the number of credits that they've earned. And so I have put the little table up there. And for most of you, probably advising undergraduate students. So the bottom of this table is what you'll find most helpful. But what I want to point out here is that registration begins on May 24th for students that are in priority groups. So that's our student athletes, students that are part of TRIO. But these advising appointments continue to open up all the way through mid to late April. And so that's why that concept of just setting a week of advising availability doesn't necessarily serve our students in the best way. And so that's why we really encourage starting that advising outreach about now in the semester, when that class schedule becomes available in Campus Connection for the upcoming semester, so that, you know, if you have those larger numbers of students, that they can start coming in now and don't get all bunched up right when it is their time to register. And students, you know, some are really on the ball and they've probably maybe even already contacted you to make an appointment. But they'll also, sometimes they'll wait until closer to their registration time. So that's why it's important to just be clear with your advisees what your advising availability is going to look like, and really notifying your students how they can best get in contact with you. And of course, the Navigate platform is probably one of the easiest ways to do that. And so you as an advisor, you can set appointment availability in Navigate. You can send messages to your assigned advisees through Navigate, and you'll have a unique scheduling link as well that you can just zip out to students so that they can schedule with you. That fully syncs with your Outlook. And so if you set time now and you do have some appointments on your calendar that are kind of blocking some time, at least students can look to the next week then, or the next week, and get in with you. So then once you've notified your students, you know, how best to get in contact with you, they'll start to schedule, of course. And then what comes next is prep time. So you see that you have some appointments coming up. So we wanted to give you some tips on how we typically prepare for those advising appointments and some resources that you can use. Our registration and records webpage, the catalog has a lot of great places to look for our official policies, a lot of resources and contact information, but that's a lot. So we wanted to point out just some of the most pertinent ones. So another tip I have is to keep track of these meetings. So who of your assigned students have scheduled with you, who have not, and remind them throughout the semester to keep coming in if they haven't scheduled, or check in if they've scheduled with somebody else perhaps, so that they still know who they should be meeting with. All right, so just an example of some things that we talked about that we typically do is for my assigned students that are coming in, I will pull an unofficial transcript for each of them. Remember, in Campus Connection, that unofficial transcript is you know, the official student's record. That's where you'll see just everything that's their official business, their official account is taking place. You can, of course, see a lot of this academic information in Navigate, but I do like to pull the transcript in addition, because sometimes it will have some more information, just a different view of some of that, such as their placement scores. Transfer credit will look a little bit more clean than it does in Navigate, though Navigate is very helpful for a quick glance. I always take a look then as well at the students' academic requirements report or their advising report. Some people call them different things. Remember, the advising report, we'll pull that up in a minute here. Registration and Records has a really nice page of how to get that and how to actually review it. That's going to show where student, you know, the official requirements for that student's major, and then it will have what the students have completed of those requirements, what's in progress, and then what's remaining. And so that's always a good thing to take a look at. And that is where the degree analysts will officially be using that to clear students for graduation. So regularly looking at that for your advisees, encouraging your advisees to regularly look at that will help everybody to know if there's mistakes or just understanding what's remaining, to be on the lookout to make sure to complete those requirements. I always take a look at Navigate to skim past notes that I've taken on previous appointments. You can get a good sense if the student has met with others on campus. You can see if they've been attending tutoring appointments, working with TRIO student support services. and all of those other support resources on campus. Some of your students also might be part of some groups that we've asked for progress reports for. So there might actually be some additional information at this time of the semester that would be really helpful on their current status in some of their courses that you could potentially talk about in some of these upcoming advising appointments. So faculty have been asked to put in notes if a student is, missing assignments, having low quiz grades, low test grades, attendance issues. So those are things you can bring up in your advising appointments as well. Then of course, the meeting takes place. So hopefully by looking at that transcript, looking at the advising report, you've maybe come up with some ideas for courses that students could consider. That's not to say though that you as the advisor does all the work. This advising meeting is definitely a relationship. It's a two-way street. Hopefully you've set those expectations with your student of what they should come with prepared for that meeting. But students ultimately want an advisor that is knowledgeable and that has accurate information. So oftentimes it's a good check and balance. Some of my favorite appointments, of course, are where students come prepared and it's more of a confirmation than a starting from scratch. But hopefully some of these resources we've talked about will help you feel more confident and prepared if that student does come in and it ultimately happens and just says, so what classes should I take next semester? And then we encourage as part of the workflow then, of course, to take good notes on the meeting that you had and follow up with the student. We know you won't have all of the answers to everything. None of us do, whether we've been doing this for 1 year, 10 years, or 20 years. There's always unique things that come up. And so making sure that you follow up with the student or referrals as necessary. Things to put in those advising notes. Certainly note the classes that you talked about, make note of any exciting things that the student talks about, career interests they have at the time, things that you might want to note to jog your memory for future appointments. So with that, Missy's going to jump in now and chat a little bit more about her experience and things that come up in those advising appointments and some other things that we can highlight that you may find helpful.
Yes, thanks, Andrea. So there's going to be obviously a wide variety of things that maybe come up with students. Each situation is different, but these are just the typical ones that I see repeatedly students may be asking about. When is my registration appointment time? Where do I see that? That's in Campus Connection. Students can see that. One Stop also emails students to let them know when that time is. Those will be available next week is when that officially is out for students. And then also just thinking about that schedule for summer and fall classes. That is a common question that comes up frequently. So students obviously will have holds on their account. Always, they're going to have that financial obligation agreement hold. So sometimes a good reminder for students is, hey, have you taken care of that? That just is the hold that goes on every semester, that students have to agree that they're going to pay their tuition and fees for the classes they register for. Another hold that you might see would be an advisor hold. So some departments across campus do put an advisor hold on there. And so if you see that and you click into the hold, it's going to tell you who placed the hold and that advisors can remove those. So where that comes up is, for instance, I work with computer science majors. If I had a computer engineering student that met with me to change their major into computer science, computer engineering typically does put an advisor hold on. I am able to actually go out and lift that hold because the student has met with me to discuss classes. They want to change their major into computer science. And so I am able to remove that so then they can register. Okay. Contact information, like I said, is specifically in that hold on the details. Some other ones that you might see would be like financial aid holds, if they have a past due balance. And students have access to see that. So you would actually be able to see it as well as their advisor, and you can refer them to, typically it's contacting One Stop or Customer Account Services, Financial Aid Office, different main offices across campus. Another thing that comes up with students, and they're using it and they love it, we've had it for a number of years now, is Schedule Planner. And that's the scheduling software that is linked to Campus Connection. And it helps students figure out, okay, these are the classes that I've discussed with my advisor. How would I figure out what my schedule is? What classes work with certain sections? Schedule Planner is a link that's embedded in Campus Connection for them. They should be familiar with that. If they're not, there are great resources, and we'll kind of get to those here during the presentation. But they can kind of walk them through how to use Schedule Planner, because as an advisor, if you're a faculty advisor and you don't necessarily have, a couple hundred students you're advising, you may not be seeing that or ask that question repeatedly. But just knowing we have great resources out on NDSU's website that we're going to show you, that you can always refer to help students out, and for yourself as a great tool. So Schedule Planner is a great way for students to search for general education categories specifically. They have the ability to just look for those specific categories, just adding in those classes. Sometimes they may end up showing, say, 1,000 schedules. What I always recommend to students is look at the first 10 schedules, okay? Or you can add some breaks in on Schedule Planner to kind of narrow in your focus of options for classes. There are times when students haven't registered right away, and they're getting limited on maybe what the options are for classes and the different sections for days and times. And with that, you're probably going to see less options, but top 10, look through those and find something that will work with their schedule. One other piece to that is when I'm thinking about students that are getting towards graduation, if classes are full in Schedule Planner, I always recommend that if a class is full and they need it for graduation, tell the student to talk to that instructor of the class to find out if they would be able to get in, okay? Because that could make or break them for graduating. And all it takes is just a simple email or a phone call to the instructor of the class to find out if they can get in. If they can't, that leads me into the next bullet point. There is substitution waivers. Then that's something that you as the advisor actually initiate a substitution or waiver if that student needs that. So an example would be if our computer science 467, if our algorithm analysis class is full, it's only offered in the spring, and our department said, yes, we'll substitute this class for that required course. At that time, when you're talking with the student, you as the advisor should initiate that substitution waiver form, which is found on the registration and records website, because the student can't actually initiate that. It starts with the advisor, it goes through to the department chair, they give their final approval, and it gets routed to registration and records, so the degree and records analyst can process that form. Okay, so that's critical that you do that during that conversation versus when it gets towards degree clearing, we'd rather have students have all that paperwork completed, so then they're not panicked going, oh my gosh, I'm missing a class. It's already processed, it's showing up correctly on their academic requirements report. Okay. Next. Another common thing, and this is a conversation that is good to be having, especially now, checking a student's academic standing. You can view that on their transcript. I know Andrea had mentioned that would be a great thing to be pulling up along with looking at Navigate and those other resources. But this information, we do have a policy out on the Registration and Records website. I just did a screenshot there of kind of what that academic standing chart is. So you can discuss with students by looking at their current GPA for their cumulative, what their past academic standing is, because that comes up like, I'm not doing well in my class and we're at about midterm now. So what is that conversation looking like? Pulling up this policy, looking at this chart and understanding, okay, currently you're on academic warning. What happens if your semester GPA falls below a 2.0? What happens next? Okay, these are critical conversations to have with students because it then can impact whether they should be dropping a class before that drop deadline so they can have a W on record versus failing a class. Okay. Talking about those current grades in those classes. So they should know where they're at in a class. If they don't, remind them in Blackboard, you should be checking that consistently. Talking to your instructor of the course, if they haven't graded things yet, that's another conversation that the student needs to have with their instructor to find out where they're at. Okay, because that will then have that domino effect of, okay, do I stay in the class? Is there a potential that I can pass with the grade that I need, or do we need to look at dropping that class? Okay, next slide. Repeat policy, the reason this comes up is for various reasons. We're coming in, if we're looking at registration for summer, oftentimes we'll have students say, I'm going back home to the Twin Cities for the summer. I'm looking at taking, say, calculus at Normandale Community College or another community college in their area. The thing is that we need to make sure that students know, and you yourself as the advisor, know and understand the policy. We have a couple of things that come into play. If you're repeating a class, you only get 3 attempts, okay? After that, you have to appeal, and that goes to a committee to review. So when I'm, for example, if I'm visiting with a student and we're talking about, okay, this is the 3rd time you've taken your intro course, we're mid-semester and it's not going well, do you need to drop that class and take a W in it and plan to repeat it then again the next semester? Do W's count? Okay, when factoring into that repeat policy, the three-peat, no, the W does not count. So if a student is going to take a W in the class and drop it before that drop deadline, that's their better option, especially if they're in their 3rd attempt. But then with that comes the conversation of, why are we repeating it again? Is this something required for your major? Do we need to have that discussion of maybe there's a different direction you need to go for a major? Okay, that should be happening with the advisor. Okay, it's not a comfortable conversation, but it should come up. And that is why we do have that repeat policy of the 3 attempts. So students aren't continuing to repeat 4, 5, 6 times, wasting their time and their money and really digging into what that conversation should be. Okay. When students are, looking at, okay, I'm in my 3rd attempt, I'm failing the class, what next? Okay, having the conversation about, is this the major for you? There is an appeal process, which I mentioned, that goes to the committee, and they ultimately will decide. And they oftentimes reach out to the assigned advisor if there's a conversation that needs to happen there. Okay, the transfer work and repeats, that is when a student takes a class at NDSU, they have to, that if they complete it, they have to repeat that class at NDSU. So in the summer, if a student, if they failed this spring in their calculus class and they're looking to retake it somewhere else back home, they can't. Okay, they can, but we will exclude that credit because they took it and they earned a grade at NDSU, and that is part of the policy. And Kendra and Hallie, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add, since this is definitely your world. But that's something that I think a lot of times students don't know, and faculty advisors maybe aren't aware of that. And so making sure that that is a known thing. And it typically is the summers that students are looking to do that. Okay. How can you go in and see if a course is being repeated for a current semester? Because if you're looking at the transcript, those repeats aren't going to show up on the unofficial transcript until final grades have posted, and then the repeat process is run. You actually can catch those repeats easily. If I'm just thinking of students who have maybe been here 5, 6, 7 semesters, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to try and go back through their transcript to see if they're repeating. You can actually pull their advisement report and look at the PDF version. And I only look at the PDF version for this because it will indicate on that version of the advisement report if something's being currently repeated in this semester. Okay. So, and if all else fails and you're not sure about repeats, please reach out to your degree and records analyst in registration and records. That's the bread and butter for them. Policy. So they're going to be great resources. Next, kind of touched on this. One other thing is that the timeline for summer, it's a lot of the classes are going to be taught, maybe it's a first 4-week class. If a student maybe struggled in that class previously and they're retaking it in the summer, a shortened version of that class is probably not going to set them up for success. Okay. Cramming in 16 weeks of information, if they already struggled in it, is not really a good recommendation. If they are on probation after spring, probably don't recommend that they do summer classes, also because students aren't typically taking a full course load. So if they don't do well in one summer class, they could then be suspended. Okay. So when you're looking at summer classes, really think about the impact that a student can make on their academic progress and GPA, depending on how they do. One other major thing that I like to bring up, because I don't think that everyone knows, is there is a transfer equivalency database out on Registration and Records website. I use that all the time. If students are asking, if I take this class back home, how is that going to transfer back to NDSU? Or I want to find a class at Normandale Community College that will come back as Math 105 here at NDSU. Using that database, which is free, it's accessible to anyone, utilizing that just to make sure that transfer is going to come back as you're intending when you're working with that student. Okay.
Yeah, so I put this information in here too. So, you know, it's really on the student and the advisor to hopefully be on the same page then on that student's degree progress. So we could spend an entire hour just focusing then on utilizing some of these tools. The advisement report, curriculum guides, degree audit emails from our registration and records, the degree and records analysts. Those are all really critical to helping be on the same page with what a student's remaining requirements are. Also the degree map software as well that isn't listed here, but again, could be its own hour-long session. But really utilizing that advisement report, seeing what's still remaining, paying attention to those overall university graduation requirements. Some majors that have a lot of elective credits, really paying attention. The student may have completed all of those specific requirements for the major, but they're missing elective requirements to earn that overall 120 credits towards graduation or more for some majors, or they're missing the required amount of upper division credits. So making sure that when they choose some of those electives that they're choosing a 300 or 400 level course. So definitely having an awareness of your department's curriculum guide and what the overall requirements are. And if your department has made changes to your curriculum guides, being aware of, if a student is a junior, they're following a curriculum guide that was maybe from 2 years ago. And so maybe a requirement has changed. And so really being aware of some of that and whether that student needs that new update, you can always move them to a new curriculum year. And that's something you'd work on with your degree and record analyst. But that advisement report is going to be where you want to look for that information. You'll also receive degree audit emails from your degree and record analyst that you might be copied on, that went to the student, and those would indicate that a student maybe has indicated they plan to graduate in an upcoming semester, and they're being directed to their advisement report to check what's still remaining and making sure that you're making a plan with them of, are these classes available in your remaining semesters towards your goal graduation date? Does the student have classes that are maybe fall only or spring only, or goodness, some are, spring of odd years only. So keeping an eye out for things like that and working with your department chair, talking to your academic assistants in your department about what classes are available. And that's sometimes then where some of those substitutions come in, like Missy mentioned earlier. So initiating that paperwork and getting that into registration and records as soon as possible, so everything is accurate and the student doesn't have any surprises at the end. And then I did want to add this in as well. During these upcoming registration appointments, you might have students that want to change into your major or change out of your major. And so at NDSU, we do have a process in place for those major changes. We require that students meet with somebody, a faculty or a staff member, to initiate these major changes. We, of course, would advise that the student meet with somebody in the major they want to change into for the most accurate, up-to-date information. But sometimes they may still schedule with you because you had a relationship with them. They knew how to get in contact with you. So certainly have that conversation and feel free to refer then. So if a student came to me and said they'd like to change to nursing, I would absolutely, I would love to chat with them about where that interest came from, but I would be referring them to the department then for that actual conversation to decide whether that change is right for them, because that nursing advisor is going to have the most in-depth information, maybe have those conversations about what the student has completed before, if they're on track for that major, aware of those specifics that come with the department. So there is a major change form. After we're through here, we'll bop around our website a little bit and show you some of these forms that we've kind of condensed into one place that we hope is helpful. But that would be something then that you can fill out for that student. Oftentimes the students are looking on Navigate for the advisor that they want to meet with in that new major. So if you don't have availability set, please consider setting change my major advising availability in Navigate so students can find you. And then just a note, you might get a lot of emails about this if you have minors in your area, or a requirement in the major you advise for is to have a minor. The students can do the minor add and change form on their own. They don't necessarily need to meet with you to do that, though you can make that update on the major change form if that makes sense and the student knows already. But that minor change form is found on registration and records webpage as well.
So just thinking about dates and deadlines, that kind of drives the whole academic year, and what processes are coming up next, what students are looking at doing next. Just hitting on, since we're in spring right now, but this happens spring, summer, fall, doesn't matter. Utilizing those wait lists. It's helpful for departments. And I know this is a question that has come up, is why do we have so many students on a wait list? And what happens is departments are monitoring that along with registration records to determine, do we need to just open up more seats? Do we need a whole nother section if we're able to do that? So kind of gauging that comes up, especially summer time when we're getting students registered, all of our freshmen. We'll see that with some of the common general education classes typically, but that also is happening year round with some of the core classes for programs as well. So making sure that you recommend to students to utilize that wait list. I know a lot of faculty don't want students constantly emailing them and asking like, hey, can I get into your class? If it's not necessary, if there is a wait list, utilize that. If they're graduating, that would be the time that I would then recommend that a student directly email the instructor. Okay, just being aware of the student registration dates, and that there are different groups of students, so they're registering at different times. It opens up for them, but then it's open all the way through that first week of the next semester. Okay, it's based on completed credits, or if they are tagged as one of those priority registration groups. So for example, like athletes, they have complicated schedules we're working around, trio, just to give a couple of examples there. So if students are wondering, why does my friend get to register earlier than me? It's because we're looking at based on completed credits. So friends may have brought in transfer credit or took more credits. And so that's how that is decided. If we all tried to register at once, we would definitely crash Campus Connection. So that's one of those main reasons there. So just two main websites that I would recommend going to. The degree and records analyst, if you're like, I'm not sure who that would be in registration and records. They have a great website that lists out who they are, a photo of who it is, their contact information, then any programs that they work with. It might be out there based on college, but then also there may be other specific programs. So the College of Arts and Humanities is broken up into different areas that different analysts are seeing. Whereas, for example, Shayla Durek, she does all of engineering, and then Hallie has computer science. So looking through this, you can contact your person over there if you have questions about policies, graduation requirements. If a student's like, what is this degree audit request I'm supposed to do? And you're like, I have no idea. These would be your main people to contact about that. Okay. Lots of other good information out there, but if you're looking for a person, that's where you'll want to go. The other part here is the Career and Advising Center. We have a fabulous website. If you just kind of hover over that, there's a faculty and staff advising resources. And with that, if you kind of scroll down there, you're going to see tons of different resources, whether it's information you can read about, there's different tutorials that you can just watch a brief video. We do link out to that site we just showed you with the degree and records analysts, but also advisors within each college. There is a point of contact, especially for our summer students, freshmen coming in. We have a person, because we know faculty maybe aren't around in the summer, there is still a person designated for each college or program. So this is readily available. There's also those schedule links for a lot of the professional advisors. So you could just get the student connected with them if that's what you need to do. Okay. Career and Advising Center staff contacts, those are listed there too. Same kind of thing. We list out, what our area is of focus, and our contact information. So again, another great website that kind of condenses those main things that you're gonna probably come across while you're advising. And it's linking out like English and math placement. That's going to link right out to the policies. Okay, so it's maybe not something that we house, but it's a common link that you're going to go to as an advisor. Okay, so make sure you check out this resource. This page here on the Career and Advising website is going to be huge for helping you out, especially if you're just starting out advising, or you're not sure where to go. Contacting people listed under the colleges or the degree and records analysts. So anything else you have to add there, Andrea?
I don't think so. So that is kind of what we have for you today. We certainly have some time for questions or others on the line to add in some helpful tips that they use that maybe we didn't cover today. But otherwise, invite you to view that email again that we had sent out that has our upcoming sessions. And in particular, we have some great faculty and some seasoned advisors on Tuesday already coming up, talking about how they establish relationships with their advisees. So any questions, feel free to unmute or talk in the chat.
One thing I did want to just throw in, Andrea, is that this is being recorded. So if you know of other advisors across campus that maybe weren't able to make it, we'll have this out on that resources link. So hopefully we can reach more people, even though, teaching schedules are busy and all of that.
All right, I wish we had that little, like the 3 dots to know if anybody was typing a question, but thank you all for attending. We will definitely stay on the call here if anybody wants to ask a question or is working on the chat, but otherwise, thank you. Thank you, Missy. Thank you, Registration and Records, for joining us. Thank you, Jesse, for monitoring with us.